Bueno, muy buenas tardes para todas las personas que empiezan a unirse a esta sesión de Pre-Departure con London School of Economics and Political Science, ubicada en Reino Unido. Inicialmente, permítanme felicitarlos a todos y a todas por haber conseguido ser seleccionados en esta convocatoria del 2025. Estamos dando apertura a estos espacios para que ustedes puedan acceder a información esencial para empezar con todos los asuntos previos a su viaje a este increíble destino. Así que la invitación es clara. Aprovechen muchísimo este espacio y los participantes que tenemos con nosotros en esta ocasión. Para dar inicio a la sesión, les presento a Nathan Brennan. Él es representante de LSE, quien nos va a brindar toda la información relativa a temas administrativos de la universidad, recomendaciones para procesos de solicitud de visa, búsqueda de alojamiento, apertura y uso de cuentas bancarias y consejos en general sobre bienestar, cultura, salud y todos aquellos temas que abarquen realmente una importancia para todas las personas que empiecen a encaminar su viaje a este destino. Por otra parte, tenemos a Daniela Celis, Paula Morales y Claudia Rodríguez. Ellas son beneficiarias de Colfuturo, estudiantes actuales en London School of Economics, y también nos van a ser de gran apoyo en esta ocasión, brindándonos todas sus recomendaciones desde la experiencia y la experticia que tienen ya en este destino, en este momento, también tanto con Colfuturo como con la universidad directamente. Así que, sin mayor preámbulo, la invitación para todos y todas es que dejen sus preguntas a través del cajón de Q&A y con muchísimo gusto nos encargaremos de solucionarlas a lo largo de la sesión. Nathan, thank you so much for being here today with us. We are so happy to have you here. You can go ahead and start your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all for being here. I am currently calling in from, I think, the hottest day of the year here so far in London. So this just goes to show, I promise, we do have sunshine in London sometimes. And the problem with us Brits is that whenever there is sunshine, we just complain about it. So I have been complaining all afternoon about how hot it is and how sunny it is. You know, I miss the rain. So if at any point I look a little sweaty and unpleasant, I apologize. But it's so nice to be here after what feels like quite a long journey. I'm just having a look now at the people we have on the call today, and there are lots of names that I recognize. There are lots of people on this call today who I know I've spoken with, who I've met in person at our events in Bogota. And it is so exciting to me that we are here today now after that long journey, the research, the applications. And today is really a chance to celebrate what an amazing accomplishment you have created for yourself in your success. So, in case you haven't met me before, as Karen kindly introduced, my name is Nathan, and I'm based at LSE in the student recruitment and study abroad team. And I always like to share, in these sessions that I have been where you are now. So I was an LSE student. In case anyone cares, I studied history at LSE. And so I know that feeling, right, of being where you are now, doing the research, doing the application, completing all the final steps. It's exciting, but there's also a lot of information. And that's why we wanted to host the event today. Is to try and hopefully make life a little bit easier, to give you the main information you need, and then hopefully, give us a chance to answer any questions that we don't cover in my main presentation. And I really just want to start by emphasizing, and you're going to hear me say this a lot today, I'm afraid. Seriously, a huge congratulations. The fact you are in this room tonight says so much about you as a person, and it says so much about our view of you, right? The fact that this year at LSE, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I will. We have had the most applications we've ever had, right? So this year we had, I think, something crazy like 60,000 applications to become a master's or PhD student. And when you look at the figures, maybe only 1 in 10 people, right, actually end up coming to LSE who start that application. So it means LSE is harder to get into than Oxford, than Cambridge, than Imperial, right? So the fact you're here is amazing. It tells me everything I need to know about you as a student and what we think you're going to bring to the LSE community. So whatever you decide to do next, whatever happens next, you should be very, very proud of the fact you are here and that you were one of, a very small number of people of over 60,000 who got selected for LSE. And on top of that, you were one of a small number of people selected for Colfatero. So seriously, congratulations. Now, I will provide shortly a little bit of information, about next steps. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about what to expect. And I'm not going to say too much about this because, as you've heard, we have some really amazing real life LSE students from Colombia who are going to tell you a bit about their experience. But I do want to start here. Hopefully, you recognize what you're looking at because you're going to be living there pretty soon. That's, of course, London. And I always like to start here because I'm sure that some of you are very familiar with London as a city. Maybe you have friends here or family, or you've been on vacation. But obviously, it's a very different experience to come to London to live, for a full year if you're doing a master's, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years if you're doing a PhD. And look, even if you have been to London before, you've probably done a lot of the touristy things, Harry Potter World, British Museum, red phone boxes, right? But let me tell you, London really is a different city when you're a student because you will have access to all of the food and the culture and the history and the museums, but there is also so much in London that is just for students. There are over 600,000 students in London, spread over 40 different universities. And so it's a great city, not only for the things you might have done before, but also the fact of how many universities there are, how many research centres, how many part-time jobs, how many free events for students, right? London really is a city set up for students. And, with LSE, we are right at the heart of the city. So you can be in Covent Garden in 20 minutes, to do shopping or to see a show, or you could take a walk down the Thames and you'll be at Parliament. We are right in the heart of the city. And I guess if I had one piece of advice just to say about, living in London, my advice would be to try and do some research before you arrive and make a list of all the key things you want to do, right? So if there are certain museums or galleries or attractions, or even, right, like if you really want to go to Manchester and watch a Man United game, make a list of all the things you want to do. Because I promise you, a year goes so quickly. And particularly once the year starts in September, there are a couple of weeks which are pretty chilled, pretty relaxed. But then, when deadlines start coming, when preparation for dissertation and stuff starts, right, things get busy quickly. So I would say make a list of all the things you want to do. Um, and try and do as many as you can in the first couple of weeks because things will be a bit more relaxed. You might even try and speak to people on the call today or people in the Columbia Society and see if anyone else wants to do the same things as you. And you could make a little group to go and see the city or the rest of the country. LSE, of course, as within London, but is a very special community. I've been at LSE now for almost 10 years, and it still is an exciting place to be for me, right? The fact that you walk around campus and you will see prime ministers and presidents, and you will hear the most amazing conversations about politics and finance and law, and you will hear languages you've never heard before, right? It's an exciting place to be. But I think one thing I have to always say is when I remember, when I started my master's, if I could give you one piece of advice, it is normal to feel stupid. And I know how that sounds. But when you arrive at LSE, you are going to be surrounded by people from every country on earth. And these people are smart, right? The people who come to LSE are smart. And I remember being sat in classes and we were talking about the readings or the articles, and I remember thinking, oh my God, have we even read the same stuff? Because your opinions are so intelligent, and I didn't even think of it like that. And so it is normal. Okay, LSE is the number one university in the UK. We are very lucky in the students that come here, and it is normal to feel a little bit like you're the stupid one in the room. Okay. And the thing you have to remember is you're not. There is a reason you are there. You are an incredibly talented person, and there's a reason you're there. And so please, don't be intimidated. There is a learning curve for sure of, getting used to it and feeling comfortable. But please, it is normal to feel a little bit out of place to start with. And that's why I think it's so important to make good friends and to connect with other people, before you arrive as well. And on that, I mean, just to say, look, LSE has the largest population of students from Colombia of any UK university. So even, if you're leaving Colombia to try and get away from Colombian people, I'm so sorry. LSE has a lot of students from Colombia. And like I say, it means we actually have the largest population of students, not just from Colombia, but also from all of South America, of any university in the UK. And so we'll hear, as we go from the students of the Columbia Society. And I would just say, at LSE, it is completely okay to seek out people from similar backgrounds who speak the same language, right? Who can't come from the same place as you do, because LSE is so diverse. But you really can find that community, right, of people with shared experiences, shared background. One other tip I want to make, or two more tips before we talk about details, and one will be about your studies. If I could give one recommendation to everyone on this call, when you arrive at LSE, you must check out a place called LSE Life. Okay, so you can see at the bottom of your screen, LSE Life. LSE Life is a support service to help you develop your academic skills, but also your personal skills. So you can go to LSE Life anytime you want. And let's say you're working on your dissertation, your thesis plan, or let's say you're writing an essay, right? And you're having a hard time, figuring it out. You can go to LSE Life and sit with a professor or a PhD student, and they'll help you. But they also run workshops, right? So if you've been out of university for a long time and you can't remember how to do footnotes or references, right? You can go and do a workshop at LSE Life. Or even if you find that in your first couple of weeks, if you're finding it difficult, to I don't know, perfect your English, right? Maybe you're having a hard time because speaking English and learning in English every day is very different. They also run sessions and workshops to help you, with your English for academic purposes. So no matter what you're studying and what you'll be doing, make sure to visit LSE Life early. And then one other thing to say would be on the careers side. So I'm sure that many of you will be coming to LSE with specific career goals or ambitions, for what you'd like to do after your LSE degree. And the career service is a great source of support to help you do that. The career service does a lot of events, organizes a lot of events, as you'd imagine, to help you meet employers and find out about internships. But they also do a lot of one-to-one support. So you can book a consultation with a careers consultant, I think like up to 5 times every semester. You can have help with a CV, do interview preparation. So they provide a lot of support. But again, a year goes really quickly. So I would say, use the time you have now over the summer to think about if there's anything you'd particularly like to do to help develop your career. And again, make a list of it and try and hit that, hard when you arrive in September. Because a year goes fast. The only other thing I'll say on top of that is that the careers service you can actually keep on using for 5 years. Sorry, the sun is making me look like an angel or something. You can use the careers service for 5 years after you have finished your degree. So even if, right, you only have a year on campus and it goes fast, Even after you've left LSE, if you want to keep on getting career support, you can go into events, having consultations, those kind of things. Now, at this stage, I want to slightly change gear and I'm afraid just cover a few more procedural bits of information about your next steps, because I'm sure there'll be questions about this area. So the first thing to really stress is, particularly at this time of year, we are sending out really important stuff over email, particularly when it comes to visas, right? So please make sure that you're checking your email regularly. Please make sure that our emails aren't going to your spam or your junk folder, because it's very, very important right now that we keep in touch so we can give you all the key information. Now, if you are currently in university or you are waiting for results of an IELTS test or your degree results or whatever it is, it's very likely that you're still going to be a conditional offer holder. So a conditional offer holder simply being someone who has things to do before their place is confirmed. I would strongly recommend you to try and meet the conditions of your offer as soon as possible. Technically, you can still meet the conditions and come to LSE, even if you meet the conditions in September. Okay, technically it's possible. The problem is you can't start the visa application until you are an unconditional offer holder. Okay, so if anyone on the call is still in this situation, I would say have a chat with us. Let us know your time frame. We still have plenty of time, but the sooner you can complete, provide us with anything we need, the sooner we can get things started on everything else. And now, if you are a conditional offer holder, right now you might be thinking about your visa application. Now, in order to start the visa application, you need something called a CAS number. This is a confirmation of acceptance of studies number, CAS. Now, if you haven't already got one of these, there might be a couple of reasons why you don't have it yet. So the first reason is you obviously need to have accepted our offer, right? You told us you want to come. Then, as I just mentioned, you have to have met the conditions of your offer. You then need to tell us how you're going to pay for your degree through the financial undertaking form. And it might be that you also need to share with us some passport details and things like that. Really quickly, on the financial undertaking form, so how you'll tell us you're going to pay, you can change that later. Okay. So what most students on this call will probably do is they'll say, call for Turo, right, will pay for my degree, right? Or will give this amount of money towards my tuition fees. If the situation changes later, so if you decide in a month's time, actually you need a little bit less money from Polfaturo, or you actually want to pay for some yourself or a family member, right? It is possible to change the financial undertaking form, okay? But try and complete it as soon as you can in order to get the visa process started. Once you have the CAS number, you can then start the online visa application. And what I'll do is share a link in the chat in a minute to our online guides and webinars that we host to help you figure out this process. It is more simple than other countries, particularly the USA, that's for sure. Um, but still, there are certain things to be careful about. It's really important you take your time with the visa application, because if your visa is rejected, and let me be clear, visas normally aren't rejected for LSE. The only reason visas are rejected is if you've made a stupid mistake, right? So if you put your wrong address on or your wrong, I don't know, name or second name, right? Just be really careful with it, because even if you apply again, we have to start the whole process of giving you a CAS number again. So the delay with the visa is kind of doubled with the delay that we have to go through to give you another CAS number. A couple of frequently asked questions, and I'll wrap up with a few final points. The first one that we commonly get is about deferrals. So, can I defer my place to next year? So at LSE, we don't allow deferrals unless there are really good reasons why. So, if you get sick or if a family member gets sick and you have to stay home to look after them, it's possible then we'd give a deferral. But because we want each year to be as fair as possible to each group of applicants, we don't normally allow deferrals. What we do allow is something called reinstatement. And the only difference is that with a reinstatement, your application would be assessed a second time next year. So even though you've got the place next year, we would have a look at your application again next time and decide whether we could keep your place. I'll be really honest with you. I probably shouldn't tell you this, okay, but it's useful to know. If you got a place this year and you reinstate your application for next year, um, there is a 95% chance, right? I'm going to say roughly, that your application will get an offer again. And that's even if you don't change anything. So you can actually improve the application, you can add things, you can improve the statement, all of these things. But if you just copied your application this year over to next year, there is an incredibly good chance that you would get your place again, all right? But nothing's guaranteed. In terms of if you haven't responded to your offer yet, there isn't a deadline, but please just let us know as soon as possible if you are going to be coming to LSE next year. Then, in terms of the fee payments, so everyone will be sent a fee invoice and a kind of fee payment plan. And it's up to you how you pay your fees. But in most cases, for Colfaturo students, all that happens is you say to us, Colfaturo are going to deal with it. And then we speak to Colfaturo. We send the bill directly to Colfaturo, so you don't need to worry about it. But just to stress that the obligations on you are quite small. So if you arrive at LSE and you hate it, which I hope doesn't happen, but if you arrive and you really don't like it and you really want to go home, you are not liable for payments until 4 weeks after you've started. So if you decide to quit, or not quit is the wrong word, if you decide to drop out within 4 weeks, you are not liable for a single penny of the tuition fees. Now, of course, if you live in accommodation and you've paid a deposit for accommodation or signed a contract for accommodation, that might be different. But in terms of from our point of view, there's no pressure. Okay, take your time, and if it doesn't work out, let us know, and you won't be liable. Finally, everyone who receives Colfaturo funding is eligible for a 20% reduction on the price of your fees. A few people have asked me about this, but basically, you don't need to do anything. So Colfatera have already sent us the list of all the people who they've nominated for this year, and we have taken that list and applied a 20% fee discount to all of those students. So you should see on your fee invoice when you get it, but also on your CAS statement, a reduction in your fee cost, all right? If you don't see that, please let us know and we'll do our best to help you quickly. Now, before I hand over to the Columbia Society, I just wanted to end on a slightly more positive note rather than talking about visas, and just tell you a little bit about what to expect over the next few weeks. And so the first thing, which I strongly encourage everyone on this call to have a look at if you haven't already, is our Destination LSE events. Now, Destination LSE events are designed to support you in getting ready for LSE. And each session is focused on a specific topic or a specific question that we get from offer holders. So, for example, how can I develop my career plans at LSE? Or how do I find a part-time job in London, right? Or how do I find somewhere to live in London? So these events are really useful if you want to learn more about a certain area or topic. So if you haven't been to these yet, have a look, scan the QR code on screen, have a look at the events we have coming up, and you can also look at all the recordings of this year's events, but also last year's events. These are really, really useful to help you get ready for LSE. The next thing, which has already passed, but kind of over the summer. So on the 9th of June, we closed accommodation bookings. So if you haven't already looked at like housing options for when you'll be in London, sadly now the LSE accommodation is fully booked. Okay, so we closed for bookings on the 9th of June. That said, there are always people who drop out. Not, maybe not, after they've arrived, but there might be people who later in the summer decide they don't want to come anymore. So it's possible that over this month and next month, more rooms will become available in the accommodation. So if you really want to live in LSE accommodation, my advice would be keep an eye on the residences websites, on the residence website, and it will be updated there if there is any availability. But other than that, it's probably very likely that many of you, if you haven't found somewhere to live yet, will be going into the private housing market. And let me just stress that, with 600,000 students in London, there is a lot of accommodation available for students. So it could be private flats, private houses, but it could also be, dormitory style rooms in a private accommodation block. There's tons of stuff available. But the housing market moves very, very fast in London. Okay. So actually, if you haven't got somewhere to live yet, don't worry, okay? I'd be very impressed if you did, because normally houses and flats will only be, the process of renting them will only be a month, maybe. So between me moving into this house, right, and seeing it online was 3 weeks, right? That's how quick it moves. So if you haven't got somewhere yet, don't worry. Now is about the right time to start looking. And we have a whole series of resources on our website and Destination LSE events to help you figure this out. Couple of other things really quickly. So the first or the next stage in you becoming a student will be next month, and this is called online pre-enrollment. This is where we'll send you an email, again, providing you have accepted your offer and unconditional, to complete the online form that says, yes, I'm coming to LSE. Once you've completed that online form, you will get your LSE email address. And so from that point onwards, you'll have an LSE email address, but it also means you can use our online services. So if you want to start looking at jobs at LSE Careers, you can, LSE Life resources, all of these things. As soon as you've completed online pre-enrollment, you can do that. Then, for most of you, the big move-in day for accommodation is the 21st of September, which is a Sunday. Some people might have to arrive a little bit earlier if you have a pre-sessional course, and these will start in mid to late August. If you don't know what I'm talking about pre-sessionals, please don't worry. It means you don't have one, okay? But and I think there was someone already in the Q&A. If you have a pre-sessional course, it might start a bit sooner. The first week at LSE, there's going to be no classes, there'll be no lectures. It's all about getting settled into the university, meeting your professors, seeing the city, meeting your classmates. So that first week is called Welcome. And this is where you can start to enjoy the city, get to know your peers. It's also during this first week that you're able to start selecting your courses. So if your course has elective modules, it's in the week of the 22nd of September that you'll start to be able to book these in. One final piece of advice on this. The course selection period can be stressful, particularly because, you're in a new city, new place, new way of doing things. In most times, course selection works out okay for people, but it's best if you go in with a plan. So if you know that you have elective courses on your degree, have a plan now of what you'd like to do. Try and figure out if there's any prerequisites, if you have to contact academics, right? And come in ready. So on that week of the 22nd of September, you'll be front of the queue to book on whatever courses you want. And then finally, the teaching, the important bit, will start on the week of the 29th of September. And that's when you'll be going to those courses you've selected, going to lectures, and you will officially be an LSE student. Now, I appreciate that was a lot of information, and I don't want to speak for too much longer because I'm already slightly over time. So I'll have a look at the Q&A box in just a second. But before I do, or we do come together to look at Q&A, I wanted to hand over to some wonderful students, some real life Colombian students here at LSE, Claudia, Daniela, and Paula, who are here today to talk a little bit about their experience and hopefully give you some advice on top tips and things to do while you're at LSE. So, guys, if you're there, I'll hand over to you and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nathan. Um, so first we're gonna... Ah, no, pues hablemos en español, ¿no? Nos vamos a presentar y luego pues cada una les hablará de cositas. Mi nombre es Claudia Rodríguez. Estoy en el cuarto año del doctorado en International Development.
Hola a todos, todas. Mi nombre es Daniela Celis y yo estoy haciendo el máster en Gender Policy and Inequalities.
Hola a todos y todas también. Espero que estén muy contentos de venir a Londres. Mi nombre es Paula Morales. Yo estoy haciendo una maestría en innovación social y emprendimiento.
Entonces, Dani, ¿quieres como empezar con los tips?
Listo, perfecto. Bueno, primero que nada, felicitarlos y felicitarlas pues por este logro. Seguramente sé que tendrán muchas dudas al respecto. Justo yo hace un año en esta sesión las tenía, pero van a ver que o sea, poco a poco se van resolviendo, se van adaptando y nada. Quiero compartirles un poco sobre mi experiencia personal, cómo me fue con el máster, algunos tips de pronto que les puedan servir. Pero creo que lo primero, y lo mencionó Nathan, es él sí tiene mucha información y se van a dar cuenta de eso. Hay muchos eventos, es una universidad que mantiene todo el tiempo abierta, entonces les sugiero de pronto si se pueden organizar un poco, revisen de aquí a septiembre cuáles son los temas que más les interesan, los otros departamentos que pronto les llamen la atención. Y en mi caso personal, a mí me funcionó suscribirme al newsletter de esos departamentos que me llamaban la atención y mensualmente te mandan qué eventos van a hacer o qué espacios van a abrir y así uno se puede inscribir con anticipación. Así que eso es un tip que a mí en lo personal me sirvió. De pronto se lo recomendaría como para evitar tanta información dispersa. Eh, Otra gran oportunidad obviamente son las Student Societies. Hay muchísimas, no solamente de países como la Colombian Society, pero también hay de religión, de política, de deportes. Así que es una gran manera de conocer gente, nuevas culturas y también ganar nuevas habilidades. Piensen que ustedes acá estarán también en representación de Colombia, no solo en lo académico, pero también en lo social. Así que desde la Colombian Society seguramente ya les contaremos más adelante todo lo que hicimos y cómo colombianos nos unimos aún más. Y yo personalmente me ha hecho sentir mucho más colombiana de lo que me sentía antes al estar acá, así que creo que es una muy buena oportunidad. De pronto ya entrando un poco al académico, el sistema educativo acá es un poco diferente a lo que venimos muchos acostumbrados en Colombia, sobre todo en cuanto al trabajo individual, en cuanto a los parciales, los talleres, los quizzes. Así que de pronto les va a tomar un poco de tiempo acostumbrarse, a adaptarse, pero que sepan que esto es normal. O sea, cada persona es diferente y el ESI también tiene muchísimas herramientas, muchísimos espacios para ayudarlos, como con este cambio. A mí me sirvió mucho las sesiones de office hours con los profesores y las profesoras de mi departamento, no solo para hacer preguntas sobre lectura, sobre temas, sino también para profundizar y hablar con ellos más cosas que van surgiendo a medida que uno está allá. Así que las office hours definitivamente creo que son un complemento y son muy útiles en ese sentido. Y nada, de pronto aprovechan en el máximo. El tiempo acá vuela de una manera impresionante y cuando menos se den cuenta ya están en julio escribiendo tesis y nada, aprovechen muchísimo. Londres es una ciudad increíble, van a conocer muchísima gente y personalmente estoy segura que van a crecer muchísimo. Así que si tienen más preguntas, las pueden si quieren ir dejando en los comentarios, si de pronto al final tenemos tiempo para resolverlas.
Bueno, yo también pues los felicito a todos por estar acá. Yo llegué hace 4 años a Londres y viendo sus comentarios y todo me da como mucha ilusión saber que viene más gente aquí. Es toda una experiencia. Creo que lo primero que yo quisiera decirles es, obvio lo académico es importante y para eso vienen a una universidad como LSI. Pero yo creo que lo chévere de estar en una universidad como LSI es que están en Londres, entonces que pueden aprovechar no solamente la parte académica, sino toda la oferta cultural. Londres es un hub de vuelos impresionante, entonces tienen la oportunidad de viajar súper barato, no solo como a lugares de Europa, donde, no sé, Francia, Alemania, pero a Marruecos, a los Balcanes, pues sitios donde uno probablemente no iría si no estuviera acá. Entonces, como que aprovechen toda la experiencia. Yo quiero hablarle específicamente a los estudiantes de doctorado porque la experiencia para uno como estudiante de doctorado es un poquito diferente a los de maestría. Em, las maestrías normalmente tienen un montón de eventos, están súper pendientes de sus estudiantes y yo creo que dependiendo del departamento y del supervisor, eso no es lo mismo para nosotros. Entonces a veces es una experiencia muy retadora y muy solitaria. Em, Entonces, como que quería invitarlos a crear un grupo de apoyo desde que lleguen, o sea, amigos, sí, gente con la que puedan contar, porque normalmente los programas son mucho más chiquitos. En International Development aceptan entre 3 y 4 personas al año, entonces no es como en las maestrías que ustedes tienen cortes de 120, son 3 o 4, entonces creo que es súper importante mantener una red de apoyo, porque sí, puede ser muy solo. Y desde el principio, cómo empezar a consolidar una relación con su supervisor. Si ustedes ven que de pronto es una persona que no está muy pendiente, que se demora en contestarles, o si es importante que empiecen a generar conversaciones tanto con el supervisor o buscar segundos supervisores. En la mayoría de los departamentos hay la opción de tener 2 supervisores. Y creo que es súper importante desde el principio saber que uno está bien apoyado, no, o sea, no solo contar con una sola persona que puede que no les esté contestando, que no los esté leyendo. Desde el principio, como ver si, bueno, esta persona no me está ayudando, prefiero agregar a alguien más al equipo de supervisión. Em, y pues ya lo mencioné, pero creo que en particular para hacer un doctorado es súper importante hacer otras cosas. Hacer un doctorado implica estar todo el día adentro con las ideas propias, adentro de la cabeza, y a veces pensamos que entre más hagamos y entre más estemos frente al computador es mejor, y créanme que no. Importantísimo hacer otras cosas, ver gente, hacer otro tipo de actividades que ayuden al cerebro no solo a descansar, sino a también como encontrar la creatividad en otras partes. Sí, los estudiantes de doctorado también están bienvenidos a la Society, em, pues a la Colombian Society y a todos los recursos de LSI también. Solo que a veces, no sé, nosotros sentimos que no somos tan parte, pero sí, hagan parte y bueno, eso creo que les puedo contar de la experiencia.
Bueno, ya hablamos un poco de la experiencia de la maestría, del doctorado, y nosotros queríamos traerles un poco de cómo ha sido la experiencia en la sociedad colombiana acá en el ESI. Y la verdad es que, bueno, de cada una pudieron escuchar hasta el momento la importancia de las conexiones. Y acá van a poder conectar con todo el mundo. Pero finalmente, estando a kilómetros de distancia, sí se siente diferente conectar con colombianos, conectar con gente que comparte los mismos gustos musicales, las mismas tradiciones, el mismo antojo por un buñuelo, por una arepa. Entonces eso sí se siente muy diferente. Entonces, digamos que lo que hemos intentado hacer en la sociedad es justamente generar esa comunidad, invitar a los estudiantes a través de diferentes eventos, no solo simplemente académicos, en los cuales pues hemos justamente trabajado con la embajada, quienes nos han apoyado muchas veces en diferentes estrategias, digamos que independientemente de la posición política, pero también diferentes estrategias en las que podemos unir esfuerzos para traer conferencistas colombianos de talla mundial, conferencistas que creamos que sea importante compartir con los estudiantes diferentes tipos de discusiones a nivel global, tanto económico, político, socioeconómico, pero también digamos que de diferentes perspectivas para traer ese tipo de conocimiento a los estudiantes, tal vez con un enfoque mucho más regional o de país. Entonces también en ese sentido hemos colaborado con sociedades peruanas, brasilera, argentina, chilena. De hecho, hemos organizado como eventos para discutir la América Latina, porque mal o bien en Inglaterra no se habla tanto de América Latina, se habla mucho más de Asia y África, y nosotros, digamos que como representantes de nuestra región, quisimos expandir y traer diferentes tipos de expertos, embajadores, para poder discutir y que los propios participantes, los estudiantes, pudieran intercambiar ideas, conexiones, porque finalmente, créanlo o no, sí se están formando los líderes del mundo, aquellos que finalmente quieren traer algo innovador y transformar la sociedad como tal de diferentes perspectivas. Y eso yo creo que es algo que nos caracteriza a todos los estudiantes del ESI, y que finalmente, frente a un mundo como el de hoy en día con tantas dificultades, créanme que eso es demasiado valioso. No solo digamos que compartir ideas con los compañeros como de Asia y África, en los que compartimos un montón de características, pero también cómo nosotros nosotros podemos impulsar diferentes debates e ideas para mejorar aspectos en la región. Entonces, además de eso, hemos, digamos, compartido diferentes tipos de escenarios, como son los social running, porque descubrimos que a muchos de nosotros nos gustaba hacer deporte, disfrutar el aire libre, sobre todo porque van a percibir que en invierno los días son mucho más cortos, a las 4 ya está oscuro, a las 8 sigue estando como de noche, entonces es importante como salir, disfrutar, como generar esos espacios como de confraternización, entonces por eso iniciamos los social running, también hemos realizado fiestas en las que ofrecemos como empanadita, escuchamos salsita, merengue, como que sentirnos en casa, porque principalmente en lo que es la Navidad y el Año Nuevo uno extraña muchísimo la casa y es importante generar esa comunidad como para sentirse en casa, para compartir una novena, como se hizo el año pasado con diferentes compañeros, no solo de LSI, sino de UCL, entonces eso también es muy chévere porque UCL y otras universidades también tienen su propia sociedad, entonces ahí se combinan diferentes tipos como de estrategia para generar ese tipo como de espacios para compartir y sentirse un poquito más en casa. Y finalmente, después que va pasando el tiempo, ustedes van extrañando más la casa, van viendo diferentes, digamos que dificultades a veces de encajar como en esa estructura académica o en la sociedad y van a ver que se vuelve su familia. Los amigos que ustedes logran hacer acá, colombianos, se vuelve su familia, se vuelve su mayor y gran fuente de inspiración, como lo decía Clau, para poder tomarse una cervecita y ganar como esa energía, ese boost para escribir la disertación o escribir su trabajo académico para el doctorado y realmente invitarles a que participen y hagan parte de la Colombian Society si pueden, porque es una experiencia increíble y también para que construyan cosas mucho más allá de las que pudimos nosotros hacer. Por ejemplo, recientemente nos conectamos con las sociedades de Oxford y organizaron también eventos de discusión de Latinoamérica, gente también muy, muy crack, y invitarles a que hagan parte, que traigan su creatividad, toda la energía también para generar esa otra comunidad, esa comunidad que ahora viene en este periodo 2025-2026. Por mi lado, eso sería todo. Igual cualquier cosa, estamos a un chat, nos pueden, creo que, agregar a LinkedIn, más que bienvenidos cualquier pregunta que tengan. Y muchas gracias a Colfuturo por el espacio y felicitaciones a todos.
Okay, Nathan, thank you so much for the time and the excellent presentation and information. Claudia, Daniela, Paula, también mil y mil gracias por todas estas experiencias que nos están compartiendo. Como pueden ver, tenemos muchas preguntas, entonces vamos a empezar. Bueno, por aquí hay una pregunta directamente para Paula, si no estoy mal. Sí, entonces, Paula, ¿cómo ha sido tu experiencia con el programa que estás estudiando y qué retos te has encontrado y consejos que nos podrías dar?
Bueno, realmente ha sido muy increíble entender la innovación social desde la perspectiva no solo latinoamericana, porque aunque compartimos muchas cosas, realmente somos culturas muchas veces diferentes, pero también compartir qué significa innovación social en África y también en Asia y poder compartir con mis compañeros, decir, nosotros tenemos este reto y que ellos digan, nosotros tenemos el mismo reto y las características muchas veces son iguales, que nosotros decimos, podríamos nosotros unirnos hacer un proyecto para solucionar los mismos problemas. Entonces eso ha sido mágico. Obviamente es importante tener muy en cuenta los contextos, la adaptación, pero eso ha sido lo más increíble y yo creo que el reto ha sido, digamos que tal vez volver a la academia. En el sentido de nosotros, sobre todo las personas que trabajamos en temas sociales, vamos a los terrenos, entendemos muchos aspectos y muchas veces uno llega acá sintiendo que es el más experto y no, yo creo que es muy importante venir con humildad y decir, vengo a aprender y a escuchar y a debatir y a escuchar desde la academia cómo entienden los diferentes conceptos, porque por más que muchas veces tengamos una experiencia laboral, siempre vamos a tener la oportunidad de aprender si nos abrimos a ese aprendizaje. Entonces, esa ha sido un poco mi experiencia. Si igual tienen más inquietudes y quieren que abonden puntos específicos, como les decía, les puedo dejar mi LinkedIn o mi contacto para poder conversar más.
Claro, muchas gracias, Paula. Sí, sería de muchísima utilidad. Listo. Bueno, vamos a pasar con las preguntas para Nathan. So, Nathan, I am seeing that you are answering some questions, but here we have more. And one question is about the agreement with Calfuturo. LSE grant me a tuition discount of around 75%. Do I still receive the additional 20% discount for being a Calfuturo beneficiary?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I can see there's quite a few questions about scholarships and the tuition fees and things like that. So let me just say a couple of things on this. So the first thing is I can see there was a few questions about the full scholarship for the Semigiros program and the results of that program and also applying for other LSE financial support. So we are in the last few weeks now of announcing financial support. So if you applied for a scholarship or you're a Semigiros, um, you should hear back in the next few weeks if you've been successful in your application. Now, unfortunately, because we receive so many applications, we don't contact everyone to say if you've been successful or unsuccessful. But you should find out, in the next few weeks, because either you'll hear from us or you won't hear from us if you've received that scholarship. Now, if you have been given LSE financial support, whether it's a scholarship or a bursary or whatever, that can be combined with the Colfatero funding. So if you receive the fee discount, you can also, receive financial support on top. Because we figure that all out because of course, remember, you'll have sent us all of your financial information about how you plan on paying. So we add that all together to help figure it out. So yes, in short, we can add those things up. So hopefully that clears that up. But the main message really is, we'll start contacting any final people who haven't been contacted yet in the next week or two. And so you should find out very soon if you've been successful for any SE funding.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, we have a question from Thomas, and he asks, how early do you recommend arriving in London before the program starts?
Yeah, I know Thomas. Thomas, it's nice to have you here. So in terms of for when you arrive in London, so if you're moving into LSE accommodation, literally moving in that weekend before you start is fine. So I think it was the 21st or the 22nd of September. But what I would say is if you plan on moving into private accommodation, it might be a good idea to arrive a little bit earlier. So, normally if students want to view flats or view houses, right, and try and figure things out, maybe they arrive 2 or 3 weeks before that so they can go to house viewings and things like that. And of course, we do just get some students who want to arrive early so they can go to Harry Potter World and go to the British Museum and do all of those fun things. That's okay. But yeah, moving in on the weekend before we start is pretty normal. But I don't know if Claudia, Paula, or Daniela if have any suggestions about that, like what you did, or if you have any advice.
Well, if you don't have accommodation yet before, ay, ¿por qué hablo? Si no tienen, sorry, si no tienen todavía dónde quedarse, yo creo que sí es bueno llegar un par de semanas antes. Buscar acomodación en Londres es un trabajo de tiempo completo. Es, se encuentra, o sea, van a encontrar, estén seguros que van a encontrar, pero requiere tiempo y hacer muchos viewings y contactar muchas personas y ver muchos cuartos y que muchas personas no les contesten. No se desesperen, pero creo que tener tiempo para hacer eso está bien, llegar un par de semanitas antes, porque a veces también lo que pasa es que, por ejemplo, hoy estamos a 11 de julio, encuentran algo hoy, pero es para mudarse en agosto. Entonces, sí, creo que dedíquenle una semana a ir a ver, y así se conoce Londres también, así conocí. Entonces, una semanita antes.
Perfecto. Daniela.
Sí, yo solo le agregaría a todo lo que ha dicho Clau, que a veces también, sobre todo yo en mi caso personal, yo encontré mi acomodación por la página web de Spare Room y yo la empecé a buscar como en julio y efectivamente me pasó todo lo que Clau ha dicho, o sea, me rechazaban, no me respondían y honestamente fue un poco difícil concretar todo estando allá en Colombia y siento que en mi caso personal yo pude haber aprovechado mucho más, así como Clau dijo, porque también lo que pasa en estas aplicaciones es que de pronto a veces las fotos son muy desactualizadas y de pronto tú llegas y te encuentras pues con la propiedad en otras condiciones y eso de pronto igual te bajonea recién tú llegas y es como, Así que yo también creo que recomendaría llegar un poquito antes, unas semanas antes, tomarse esto como un trabajo literalmente, pero es muy importante porque va a ser tu hogar por el próximo año, así que es muy importante que tú sientas que estás en un lugar cómodo, en el que te guste, que esté bien ubicado, porque eso es lo otro, así que nada, de pronto sí lo recomendaría.
If I'm so sorry, if I can just jump in and add one extra thing just while you're talking, it made me think. Of course, if you do arrive early, please, 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 please make sure your student visa is valid before you arrive. If you arrive before the date of your student visa starts, you can arrive in the UK as a tourist, but then you would actually have to leave the UK and come back to start your student visa. So if you are planning on arriving early, particularly the great advice, about spare room and checking places out, it is a lot of work, right, to visit these places and see these things. But please just be careful around the visa date. This is the only one thing I would say. Don't arrive before your visa starts.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, Thomas also say, I am interested in working part-time at the university, ideally as a teaching assistant. Do you have any tips or suggestions on how to prepare or get started?
Yeah, sure. Well, I can say a few things from the university perspective, and then I think these guys would be best placed to say, if they've had any experiences working. But just in terms of, the logistics, the student visa allows you to work for up to 20 hours per week during term time, and then it's unlimited during vacations. So these guys now, they've finished their exams, right? And there's no classes, there's no lectures, so they can have full-time jobs if they want to. There's no problem there. If you are interested in part-time jobs, there's lots of jobs available at LSE. Some of them will be, I'm not going to say basic is the wrong word, maybe less about like career development, things like helping do campus tours or social media or office work, right? And then there's other things that Thomas might be more interesting to you around research or potentially supporting academics, those things. So all of these different types of jobs are available at LSE. And I will say they pay very well. So all jobs at LSE have to pay at least £17 an hour. So that's £17 an hour. So imagine if you just had a part-time job for 10 hours a week, which I think is definitely manageable as a master's student. That's 600, £700 a month to help with living costs. So in terms of tips, what I would say are come along to our Destination LSE part-time jobs event, because in that we'll actually share details of lots of different roles available at the university. But then also, as soon as you get access to the LSE careers website after pre-enrollment, have a look at the jobs that are listed on there, because that will have jobs not just at LSE, but also at other employers around the city who want to attract LSE students. But I don't know if any of our students, if they've had part-time jobs while they've been studying, and if they have any advice, whether it's working in Starbucks or a research assistant, I don't know.
Bueno, si quieren empiezo yo. Yo he trabajado en muchas cosas. He cuidado perros, he cuidado niños. Hay aplicaciones como para buscar pet sitters, entonces si les interesa, eso se puede hacer. En el ESI, como estudiantes de maestría, no se puede dar clase a estudiantes de maestría. Y normalmente los GTAs, o sea, los Graduate Teaching Assistants, son estudiantes de doctorado. Entonces, no sé, y se contratan, o sea, ahorita están contratando teaching assistants, entonces no creo que sea fácil como estudiante de maestría conseguir un puesto de esos, pero él sí tiene como occasional jobs también que pueden ser chéveres, ayudar a como en charlas y cosas así, y terminan yendo a charlas súper chéveres. También como cuando hay eventos, contratan gente. Sí, esa ha sido mi experiencia en el trabajo.
Yo pues podría decirles que apenas lleguen, yo creo que ustedes llegan pues con gran parte de la ayuda con el futuro y entonces la pasan súper chévere y yo creo que desde un inicio organícense financieramente. Si pueden conseguir trabajos como los que decía Clau, como baby o bueno, cuidando perros, háganlo, así sea por algunas horitas, porque eso igual finalmente les va a ayudar después para viajar a cualquier parte o incluso trabajando en eventos, eso es súper importante, o justamente para ahorrar para más adelante los meses que quieran quedarse acá, porque sí, finalmente digamos que el costo de vida es elevado y si quieren como disfrutar como toda la culinaria, viajar más por Inglaterra y demás, es importante que desde un inicio como que vayan haciendo ese ahorrito o vayan pensando cómo van a preparar eso más a más adelante. Igual también promover el LSE Generates, que es la incubadora aceleradora de LSE en la cual ustedes van a poder tener acceso de por vida, caso tengan una idea para poder emprender. Entonces, si quieren aprovechar el tiempo también para conectarse con LSE Generate, háganlo y a veces ellos tienen trabajos voluntarios en el cual yo ya hice parte y era pago. Entonces, acérquense, uno nunca sabe. No solo para los que quieran aprender de emprendimiento, sino cualquier persona que esté interesada en hacer negocios en UK, ahí tienen todas las oportunidades, como les decía, pueden salir como oportunidades de trabajo.
Súper, Daniela. ¿Quieres agregar algo?
De pronto, qué pena que es que estaba respondiendo un mensaje. Estoy enviando el link del chat de WhatsApp de LSI Col Futuro. Ese fue el que tuvimos para el año pasado, pero bienvenidos, se pueden ir uniendo para que también entre ustedes se vayan conociendo y demás. Entonces lo voy a volver a pasar. Y también les voy a dejar la red social de la Colombian Society en Instagram para que también nos vayan siguiendo. O si llegan antes a Londres, si quieren también asistir de pronto a los últimos eventos que hagamos, también son más que bienvenidos.
Sí, perfecto. Muchas gracias, Daniela. ¿Nos lo puedes colocar en el chat para todos? Listo. Súper. Gracias. Bien. Ok. Okay, Nathan, how do we secure the accommodation we have chosen? Since it's about 3 months before the arrival date, do we need to pay a down payment?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I was a little confused by this one, just in terms of what, type of accommodation the question was asking about. But yeah, so if you've booked LSE accommodation, or if you do book it in the weeks to come when there's spaces available, normally we ask for you to pay a deposit, so a down payment within a few weeks of making your booking to confirm your place. If, of course, you're talking about the private sector and you're going into a private flat or a private house, they'll have their own rules around deposits and down payments. But normally, a typical flat, a typical house, the landlord typically asks for maybe 5 weeks of rent or 6 weeks of rent as a down payment before you arrive. What I would say is if you do have questions about accommodation, because I'm not quite sure if I've answered that, because I wasn't quite sure what you were asking at, I have already put my email address in the chat. So if you have questions that we don't get time to cover here, or indeed if there's anything else that comes to mind tomorrow or next week or in 2 weeks' time, please just contact me and I will do my best to help you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nathan. Perfect. And this question could be for Daniela, Claudia, Paula, and also for Nathan. And it's what would be your recommendations to apply the next year to LSE? I just would like to make sure that I get admitted without any stopper that I could have.
Well, maybe I can start, and then these guys, if you have any tips. But it gets tougher every year. The competition for places is very high. Like I said, we actually get more applications per place than Oxford and Cambridge. But really, the key thing we look for in the application are people who fit not just at the university, but also on the course you're applying to. Because we get lots of students, right, and they apply for a master's in economics. And they say, okay, I want to do this because I'm great at economics and I love economics and I did really well in my bachelor's in economics. When actually, what we would say to that person is, okay, but there's 10,000 economics degrees in the world. Why this one, right? Why the LSE economics degree? And so we want students to have researched the course, to understand the professors, what kind of things you'd be learning about on the course, and really tailor it. So if you are applying next year, you've got tons of time. But if I had one piece of advice now to get ahead, really try and understand, what you'd actually be studying on the course and think about ways that you can make your experiences and your skills relevant in the application. But of course, if you are applying in a year, I'm sure I will see you again at some point over the next 12 months to talk more about this. But guys, I don't know if you have any final tips on that, or indeed, like if we've not covered anything for next year's students, whether you think you have any words of wisdom to impart to them.
No, solo que disfruten mucho, disfruten mucho. Es toda una experiencia y creo que verlo así
Y tal vez como que a la hora de aplicar, como que piensen mucho como en la manera como cuentan su historia, ¿no? Y cómo, no sé, en la manera como piensan, su experiencia, voluntariados, cómo una cosita se va conectando con la otra y cómo ustedes pueden expresar eso muy bien y cómo a través de lo que han realizado, así sea una habilidad, un proyecto que hayan desarrollado, cómo todo se alinea de cierta manera para eso que están anhelando ahorita. Creo que una de las cosas que más les gusta a los británicos es el storytelling, entonces creo que por ahí podría estar, digamos que la clave para que les vaya muy, muy, muy bien. Igual solo recordarles que para los interesados también en buscar empleo acá, el formato de la hoja de vida es distinta y hay mucha información de eso también a través del ESI, entonces como que vayan revisando eso a los interesados de una vez para que pues, se vayan acostumbrando a eso. Eso sí.
Daniel, ¿quieres agregar algo?
No, está bien. Gracias.
Perfecto. Bueno, pues Daniela, Claudia, Paula, mil gracias por compartir su experiencia con nosotros. A todos los asistentes también muchísimas gracias. Voy, digamos que a omitir las preguntas que hay actualmente en el chat porque quizás son muy de casos personales. Entonces la invitación es que en estos casos se dirijan directamente con Nathan. Les acabo de colocar el correo en el chat nuevamente para que puedan dirigir sus inquietudes más específicas y que sean respondidas como tal. Nathan, thank you so much again for this amazing presentation. I really hope to see you in the next opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck, everyone. If you see me on campus in September, please come and say hello. I might not know what you look like because I'm just looking at me today, but please come and say hello. And we are so excited to welcome you to LSE, and I know you're going to have a fantastic year. So thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Claudia, Paula, Daniela, muchas gracias, chicas, que estén muy bien.
chao, después de...
Gracias, chao.